number you have dialed has been changed.
How fickle my heart and how woozy my eyes. I struggle to find any truth in your lies. And now my heart stumbles on things I don't know. My weakness I feel is finally shown. When you realize I can change what you see. But your soul you must keep totally free.
Who's in charge of the company that you are keeping in your head? Are you the chief executive officer of the corporation you are running in your mind? Are you running an incorporation of a conglomeration of thought narratives going through your mind? Or are you operating a limited liability corporation where you are portraying yourself as one thing, but you are something completely different? Or are you running a sole proprietorship where you are taking full responsibility for the creation of the construct of the thoughts in your mind? When we are not using our awareness to direct the traffic of our thoughts, we are thinking in an unconscious way. Our thoughts are playing out in our head like a parade. Every waking moment is filled with traffic vying for our attention. When you maintain a position of awareness by turning your attention to each thought as it forms, or as quickly as you can realize you've engaged in a thought, you'll begin to notice that the parade has themes or narratives. The narratives of unconscious thinking come predominantly in three different flavors: the judge, the victim, and the false construct of the self. There is another theme, the witness, which is conscious awareness. The witness uses thought with conscious intention. It is conscious thinking. It is the artist consciously using language to form a thought narrative. This could be considered good thinking. You will not escape the confines of your thinking mind until you shed your brain. Hardware, the brain, must have software, language, to function. It's not that you must seek to never have a thought again. It's that you must seek to always be in charge of those thoughts. It should be the process of a conscious mind, a mind where you are at the helm, steering the chosen course. The point here is to end the unconscious suffering due to an out-of-control parade of negative thinking that goes through your mind. Just think of yourself as a computer that got some corrupted software put on it. Now you, the observer of that computer, the conscious witness, becomes your own personal geek squad. You get to reprogram the software. Turn your attention to your thoughts. Define where they originate, which narrative is spinning a story to attempt to try to hold your attention. You will quickly notice a narrative coming at you that is coming from the place of gossip. It is judging something, judging you, or judging someone else. If the judge happens to be judging you at the moment and you don't deserve the punishment, or you've listened to this blame 100 million times before, are you punishing yourself over and over for the same crime? If so, forgive it, let it go. In other words, give the judge the finger and tell him to buzz off. If you do deserve the punishment, accept it, feel its weight, learn the lesson, forgive it, let it go, and be done. Take responsibility for the action that may have hurt you or hurt someone else, and then do your very best to remain conscious to not let that happen again. If the judge is busy entertaining you by judging someone else, that is gossip, and you can find that those narratives will be based in A, making assumptions about a situation, or B, you're taking something personally. And in that case, both of those things are total horseshit, and you should stop. For some tips and tools on learning how to stop making assumptions and taking things personally, you can see this playlist. Another common theme that you're playing out in the narrative of your unconscious thinking process is the role of the victim. The role of the victim is tricky. It can get you entangled in it like a cat playing with sticky flypaper. The victim has a couple of facets to its narrative. The martyr sacrificing for the greater good, Not all of that narrative is harmful if the act of being a martyr is done with intention and has no resistance and full acceptance of that act within yourself. Now, you may actually be a sacrificial lamb. You may be having or have had the experience of being socially punished for upholding what you perceive as truth. This is not a narrative that you necessarily hurt yourself with. It turns ugly when you're doing it with resistance. When it turns to, look what I've done for you, you ingrate. Look at me here on the cross, sacrificing for you. That's when you go from a true martyr to a pity pot victim. You don't get to be a sacrificial lamb when you use your good deeds to punish another for your actions. At that moment, you come tumbling down off of that cross. A martyr gives in silent willingness with intent and desire for no recognition. You give because you want to, not to feed the false construct of the ego, not for recognition, simply to be in service to other. Another narrative of the victim, they, he, she did this to me, that's the narrative of taking it personally. The only sentient being that can justify the right to hold this narrative is the innocent, an animal, a child that is at the mercy of an adult human. So that means not you. Unless you're a child, in that case, listen anyway, because you may need to correct this way of thinking later on as an adult, because this is often a theme we carry as a burden. I think I'm pretty safe in saying that the vast majority of anyone listening to this was raised by unconscious thinking adults. They most likely live their lives based on the point of view of the false construction that was programmed into them by our culture. But that does not justify your continuing to use their point of view to continue to punish yourself. Don't take it personally. Their actions are not a reflection of who you are. It's a reflection of who they are. It is their karma to carry. Don't carry it for them by continuing to uphold their beliefs about you. This is where you let go of it. Give it all back to them in a tidy little imaginary box, or a real one if that works for you. Use the power of your thoughts with intention to collect up all the perceived damage that has been done. Put it in the box. Forgive them. It is not a reflection of your value. It is a reflection of how they valued themselves. Give their deeds back to them. Let them haul that weight around. Don't give it power to continue to harm you by giving your attention to someone else's point of view of who they think you are. Don't take it personally. Forgive it. Let it go. All of the unconscious narratives running in your brain have a voice you hear, the parade of thoughts as they trundle through your mind. When in unconscious thought, it is the voice of the construction of the false self, the one that was formed by the symbols and labels of our culture, our language, our thinking mind. When our mind is operating on an unconscious level, it spins all sorts of tales to keep our attention focused on it, the false self. I'll say right here that it does this because without your attention, it no longer exists, and it is afraid of death. A matter of fact, it is afraid of everything. All of its motives are generated from a sense of lacking, what I call the hollow. This is connected to our physical bodies as a state of being hungry. Your stomach growls to get your attention when the body needs fuel. We identify with this sensation of hollow within minutes of our birth, when for the first time we are no longer having our every need met instantaneously like it was for the last 9 months. We begin to identify it as ourselves slowly. Each time we feel the hollow or pain in whatever form, we cried. That association between pain and the empty feeling and a response that satisfies or stopped the pain or filled the hollow became linked to our physical body, and we built a false identity with words, symbols, much later as a gradual process. Think of this. Are you hungry? Who is the you in that sentence? Is it the eternal, immortal consciousness of your true nature you, or is it your avatar that I am addressing in that sentence? Well, it's the avatar, obviously, but how many times in our lives have we been addressed as our avatar, as the hollow or the pain? Like a kabillion. And it started instantly when we were born. Parents babble on and on to their infants, telling them what state our avatar is in. How could we not identify that state of being as who we are? We didn't have a choice. To those of you who had parents that addressed you and your avatar correctly as such in this example, is your body's tummy empty? And do you feel the sensation of pain in your body's knee after you just fell off your bike? If you had those parents, well, you don't count, and I'm really not sure why you're listening, because you should have twigged all this stuff out by now. But for the rest of us poor schlubs, we didn't have a choice, and we began to associate our physical body as all that we are. We never had our spiritual self addressed until much later, through distorted symbols of language, also known as religion, as a mental construct, as something outside of ourselves or within ourselves, but lost somehow. Well, that's because it was lost. It was never recognized for many years. I could argue that it was actually suppressed, but that's another conversation. So it atrophied like an unused muscle. It is not gone. It can never be gone. You are consciousness animating matter. The entire creation is consciousness animating matter. There is nowhere for this connection to go to. While we are experiencing this physical realm, it is all there is. Consciousness unfolding as matter in every moment, ever present, everywhere. And so here we are, consciousness awakening to recognize itself. You can figure out what you are by forgetting and letting go of what you are not. You're not your hollow, you're not your body. Forget all the thoughts, words, and symbols you've used to identify as you, your physical self. You're tall, you're thin, beautiful, not beautiful, whatever. You can throw all of that right out the window for starters. And brick by brick, you will begin to disassemble the construct that is not who you are. This is the process of dissolving the false construct of the self. We identified right off the bat as a frightened, uncomfortable, hungry infant. This is where the false self began to form an identity, an ego. Unconscious thought may have allowed that infant ego to grow into a tyrant that is now running your life with its narrative and babble. Turn your attention to the narrative. Begin taking your power back from it piece by piece with your conscious agreements and disagreements with its point of view. Stop letting it judge you and others. Stop letting it tell you how afraid you should be. Stop being its victim. You made the dang thing by accepting its point of view as truth. So unmake it by deciding whether it's truth or it's lies that it's spinning. Decide for yourself what is true by using that floppy, weak-ass muscle you call your heart or intuition or gut or whatever. What we really need to understand here is that this identity that we created as our avatar, the ego, is really just an infant, a small child that is scared of the experience that it's having, and it needs someone to take the responsibility of guiding it. It needs you to be the parent, because this child is too small and immature to hold up the weight of the false construct our culture told us we're supposed to be. It's being crushed by the stress of it. So if your 3-year-old ego self is driving, you might want to take the keys. And brick by brick, you want to deconstruct the false construction that our culture gave us to serve as our self-identity, because you would be surprised at what you're going to find within.
Yeah. Just one more. Yeah. Almost there. Yeah. Yes, I made it through.
Dang, what took you so long?
Oh, the bridge was out. I had to take the long way home.
Well, it's good to see you, and I'm glad you're home now. Is your avatar's tummy hungry? And are you having sensation of pain from that cut on your avatar's forehead? It must have been a hell of a trip. Come on in, why don't you tell me?
Full of flame. There is truth everywhere, waiting for you to claim. Well, I love you, sweet baby, but I always take the long way home.